Still on the search of that one true love? On the limbo in this crazy world of dating, marriage, relationships? Well, listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Relationship Podcast, your one-stop podcast for everything about relationships.
Hello, and thank you for tuning in to the GSMC Relationship Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. My name is Jessica Coe, and I'll be your host again today. I just realized that it is Memorial Day, so happy Memorial Day, everybody. Happy Memorial Day weekend. Didn't do anything exciting for it because I had no idea it was happening until just now. So hopefully you guys got to go out and do something fun during this wonderful, wonderful quarantine and stay home. So enjoy your Memorial Day. Do something 6 feet apart. I have a fantastic show for you today. It is almost entirely stay home friendly, and we're going to talk about how to quarantine with bae and some different activities you guys can do, and how to quarantine without bae and activities you guys can do without being in the same space together. And then we're going to also talk about how video games affect a relationship and what, is it positive? Can it be positive? And finally, we're going to end with a couple of different video games that I suggest for relationships and to play with your partner. So let's get in, because this is going to be such a great show and I'm just so excited. So we're going to start with quarantine with bae. Okay, so I know this has been a major struggle for a lot of people, and already in China, there's been a major spike in divorce rates reported after the home confinement due to COVID-19, aka quarantine. So this is kind of like a quarantine effect. It's not happy. It's actually very sad. So I think what's happening is these people are spending time together, and they're so confined to each other, and they get stuck inside, especially people stuck inside smaller spaces, and it gets very stressful. It's easy to argue with the only other person you're with, especially when you yourself are stressed about other factors in your life. So this pattern has also been predicted to follow suit in the U.S., which is something that we really should take into account and try to avoid, because breaking up over a pandemic is seriously, seriously sad. So you and your partner are confined at home. You're stuck together and in a limited space. No doubt you and your loved one will be having so much more face-to-face time than usual, especially if you live together. And each of us are experiencing a disruption in our own personal routine. So we're used to going to work every day in the morning, or taking the kids to school, going grocery shopping on certain days of the week. Somebody makes dinner this day, somebody makes dinner the next day. And it's become, and you have like date night too. So all of those things are off the table now, because if you have lost your job, which I am so sorry if you have, or if you're just home working remote, you have kids, they're working remote, it becomes a lot more chaotic, because you have to learn how to get out of this routine that you've been in for so long and that has worked for you and you've made work for you, and now you have to try something else, and you don't know how long you're going to have to do that other routine for too. And this routine has become the spine of your relationship. and you rely on it, for breakfast, lunch, and dinner when, and even grocery shopping has become a chore. I mean, how do you even handle it? Because everybody is different, and each of the states are different, and every store is different with how they're handling, the process of getting people into grocery stores. If they're even open, what days are open, it totally changes hours, which you have to change your schedule for. Especially if you're working remote and you have certain times you need to be working, like teachers. It really screws up your schedule because now you have to meet, your deadlines and still get groceries, or maybe now your partner has to go get groceries instead. So, how do you handle it? Do you have one person going? Do you rotate between you and your partner, or do the two of you always go together? And when you go together, it just adds that little bit more of a process. You have to be kind of aware of your partner too. Or you don't have to be, but there's always going to be that part of you inside, especially if you're worried about contracting the virus for whatever reason. You start to worry about them on top of yourself. You're also putting on that extra risk value when you have two people instead of one. You're also taking up more space in the grocery stores or whatever store, and you're adding on more of a range around you to contract that virus. And, grocery shopping is already stressful enough. Have you stood in the lines outside of Trader Joe's or even Target? Depending on your location, you have already run into these problems. And there's so much extra pressure on you and your partner to get everything you need for the longest time possible, but to also get in and get out. You don't want to spend too much time in the grocery store. You can't really sit there and check your list like you used to be able to and just kind of wander about. It's more of a dodging game between other customers, and it becomes very stressful. Even myself, I know I spend half my time outside telling my boyfriend to stop touching his face. But it's so hard because I know he's doing it subconsciously. You have to remember to stay 6 feet away from everyone else, reminding your partner when they're a little too close to others. And this pandemic it's really a test, because if one of you catches it, well, the both of you are going to catch it unless one of you is asymptomatic. So not only do you begin to worry about your own mannerisms, you also begin to worry about your partner's, and you begin to examine and you start to critique every subtle move they make. Brushing their hair back, swiping at an itch on their nose, a gentle touch to your back. It's so easy to just flip out on them, to turn and say, "Be careful with what you're touching, that hand is contaminated." And they look back at you sheepishly, and there's just stuck in the times when things were simpler. When touching was a form of love or affection and not a transferring of the possible transferring of a disease. It's especially stressful when you have one person in the relationship who is overly aware of both of your actions, and the other person is doing their best to follow instructions but still susceptible to habit and their urges. And a major, major shout out to all of you who live in apartments. I've had my moments where I have to fly in front of my boyfriend's finger, aiming towards the call button, a Clorox wipe in hand as "Oh Fortuna" rings out dramatically in the distance. And you have to remind them and yourselves that this is not just for your own health and safety, but for your parents you want to visit, for your grandparents you miss, for the kids you're coming home to, and now that we've seen cases of cats with COVID-19, for the pets you're coming home to too. We don't know how far this is going to spread and if it's going to keep adapting and finding new sources. There's just too much stress and irritability that comes with the process of quarantining and social distancing, and it's so easy to put the blame onto your partner. But take a moment to actually evaluate how your partner is adapting to this change and try to recognize the efforts that they are actually putting in this time of crisis. Yes, they may be distracted, but so long as they're putting in an effort, they are contributing to the safety of you and your family. And that's the most important thing to take out of this. And I should remind everybody that there are many different mindsets, even between couples. We have introverts and homebodies who will just love and thrive off of this opportunity for privacy and to be able to stay home and work remote and not have to go outside and not have to go out, to a restaurant and into those social situations. Maybe visiting their partner's friends gave them a lot of anxiety and it really drained them to go meet them. So now they don't have to, and they're just kind of taking this as an opportunity to really recharge themselves, and it's more like a vacation to them. On the other hand, we have extroverts who will feel more like they're confined, like they're in prison in their own home, which is just an awful feeling because home is where you're supposed to come home to at the end of the day. It's supposed to be a restful, peaceful place. But instead, they're feeling agitated. They're more prone to these stressors. And keep in mind which side of the coin both you and your partner do fall on, because especially if your partner is an extrovert or just tends to enjoy being out of the house, they might take their stress to their partner as opposed to the situation at hand. Because remember, they're not in the place that makes them, themselves. They're so used to going out to clubs or going to cafes and just being around other people, where now they're not even able to be around other people. So in summary, it really is best to recognize that both of you are in this together, and there are millions of couples in the same predicament. You two are not alone, and you and your partner may not have the same thought process and responses towards this pandemic. Remember that the stressors of quarantine and COVID-19 might change your partner just temporarily, but it'll all pass eventually, and things will return to normal. So the strength of your relationship is determined on how you and your partner get along in high stress times. Be supportive of each other, because at the end of the day, know that your partner is trying and that this pandemic is not your relationship. And for those of you who feel like you need to get out of the house, just remember that there are ways to just take a break from, the walls of your house and just to get outside, get into nature, as long as you're staying cautious and protective of yourself and others, keeping that distance from other people. It really shouldn't be a big deal just to go out and go into nature with or without your partner. If you need a break, if you need a breather, just take that time for yourself and don't feel like your you time is being taken away from you. So what if you've grown stubborn with each other indoors? We're going to talk about a few easy solutions in our next segment. So after the break, we're going to talk about some ways to make everything a little bit more fun in your own home. Stay tuned.
You really can't underestimate the importance of having the right creative work for your brand or your product. Whether it's a logo, a website, a book cover, or an ad campaign, you really need a quality design to make that big difference pop and deliver your overall engagement and success in a competitive market. That's where Design Crowd comes in. Design Crowd has over 750,000 designers from Sydney to San Francisco ready to help you with awesome creative ideas. They make crowdsourcing work for you. So if you need a logo or you're working on your creative branding, you can go to designcrowd.com and post a brief describing the design you need. And then within about 2 to 7 days, you'll receive up to over 100 different designs from designers around the world. Then you pick the best design and approve payment to the designer. So you're only paying for the design that you want. It takes a lot of the guesswork out of freelancing and out of crowdsourcing. And you don't have to be a huge company like Harvard Business School to use Design Crowd, although they have used it as well. You can start a project on Design Crowd for as little as $99. And if you go right now to designcrowd.com/health and wellness or enter the promo code health and wellness on their website, then our health and wellness listeners will receive up to $150 off of your design project. That's designcrowd.com/health and wellness or entering that promo code health and wellness.
The GSMC Sex Podcast is a show that examines all aspects of sexuality, from physical to emotional to spiritual. Join our hosts as they discuss age-old questions, common misconceptions, and the latest topics surrounding sex. They'll tackle topics about sexuality from the complicated to the hilarious and everything in between. GSMC Sex Podcast is your show for all of your questions about sex, even some you might not have thought of yet. Download the GSMC Sex Podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you can find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
Hi, hello, welcome back to the Relationship Podcast. We just discussed some ways that this quarantine is affecting couples who are living together, especially people who live in very close spaces. For example, I live in a studio apartment and we are with each other all day, every day. And whether you live in a studio apartment or a mansion, you are together in the same space and you're going to see each other. And it also is disrupting routines as well. So a couple ways to overcome this is by finding some new activities. Some of us are going to go a little stir crazy, and trust me, I am there with you. So what can we do? I have come up with a couple of fantastic ideas for you to implement and try out at home if you have not done any of these already, and if you have done them already, they are really fun to keep trying and do again. So my first discovery in quarantine that it's an activity I've done with my own boyfriend, and we had a lot of fun doing it, is the Bob Ross MSP Paint Edition. And that is where you sit down together, you pull up a video on YouTube of Bob Ross. Maybe you have YouTube capabilities on your TV. That's what works best. That's what worked out best for us, so we could see more and see more detail. But you can do it on a desktop computer, whatever you have, and then you pull out two computers, one for each of you, and you watch Bob Ross and you try to follow along with your online art software of choice, or not online, but on your PC. And for most people, this, what they have if they don't do art regularly on their computer, they have MS Paint. So what you do is you sit down and you try to follow along with whatever have you and recreate along with Bob Ross. And when you get done, it's hilarious to see what you've come up with, because the format you're dealing with is completely different, and you have a totally different canvas, because especially if you're using your mouse, it's just so funny to see what you come up with. So you actually have something you can reflect on too, and you can share it online, you can share it on Instagram or Facebook with friends. And I will say that this activity is a lot more fun when you add alcohol to the situation. So sit down, enjoy a glass of wine, a glass of whiskey, and watch some Bob Ross, because in life there are no mistakes, only happy little accidents. So give the Bob Ross MSP challenge a try, or MS Paint challenge a try. I'm sure lots of you have already tried cooking something new together. Well, I have a recommendation that was invented between my boyfriend and I, and we call it the Kevsika recipe. And whether it's amazing or a total catastrophe, it's actually fun to get your hands dirty and learn what flavors each of you dislike and like. So what you do is you take a protein of each of your choice, put it into a mixing bowl, add whatever veggies you want, and each of you take turns seasoning it, adding whatever seasonings you want and whatever sauces. You mix it all together with your hands in the bowl. It gets messy, and then you lay it out onto a pan and bake it in the oven. And like I said, this is just a fantastic way to learn each other's tastes, and it's just so fun to be able to cook together with your partner in the kitchen without a recipe and without the stress of having to make something come out perfect. If you are artsy or just kind of want something to do for a little bit, I would highly recommend doing a call and response drawing. That's where one of you draws something, you start a picture, and then you hand it to your partner, and then they continue the picture. For me, this did not go that great because although my partner is an amazing artist, he is also a goofball, so he just started drawing stick figures all over my beautiful painting of a flower. But hopefully that works a lot better for you guys. Another really fun adventure for those of you that are of drinking age is to actually try distilling your own alcohol. Although it is very easy to go to the store and get, whatever you like to drink, it is so fun to stay at home. You can order the stuff on Amazon. It's very simple. It just takes a lot of time. But it's interesting to kind of document over a few days how, it depends on what you're making, but how the distilling process goes. I mentioned at the beginning of my previous podcast that we had tried making makgeolli, which is a Korean rice wine. And this one was so easy. It took 3 ingredients, and it was so fun to see how it would bubble over a few days. And it was so fulfilling to actually try something we had made together. You can also try playing a new video game together, whether it's both of you playing, one of you playing and the other one watching, or you just take turns playing and watching. It's a really great way to just immerse yourself into a storyline that takes you away from being at home and in the same routine every day. Try supplementing your lunch and dinner with the best side dish, Netflix. Have a series that you binge at lunch every day, and then have a series that you also binge at dinner every day. It kind of gets you into a routine that you can easily follow, and it helps you so that you're still eating together and enjoying your meals together. You can try raising a new plant. Hopefully that goes much better for you than it has for me because all of mine are dead now. You can redecorate your house, try out different wall decorations, move things around, have a little photo session at home, and stick up some pictures of each other on the walls and make something creative and fun to look at so that you feel like you're in a fresh space that you can feel comfortable in and peaceful in, and you don't feel like you're stuck in the same place every day. It's okay to redecorate even once a month. Once a week might be a little obsessive. If you're into that, go for it. But as long as you're not stressing yourself out, as long as it's something that you can do to enjoy, redecorate until your heart's content. You can cleanse your home like you have never cleansed it before. I know cleaning does not sound like the most amazing activity, but when you do it together, it gets done a lot faster. It helps so that you feel like both of you are contributing to your relationship and your living space. And once you are finished, you're just going to feel so much better. Because if you're stuck in quarantining inside this dirty space, your mood's going to go down the hill so fast. So relieve those stressors, clean up, organize, and just do a little spring cleaning in summer. You can even start a new book club with Bae. You can pick out a book between the two of you. It can be a short book, it can be a long one, it can be a comic book, it can be whatever you two decide works for the both of you, and read it on your own, but then, discuss it either over breakfast or just at a certain time of day or whenever, really. It doesn't matter. But if you're reading the same book, you can kind of keep up with it, with the same adventure, but independently reading it. And it gives you something to do on your own time, so you can work on it when you're in the same space, but you don't feel like you have to do it with your partner. If you didn't grow up in the same city or town, one of the things I recommend is taking a virtual tour through your hometown. You can visit your schools, any of the schools you went to. You can visit the house or any of the houses you lived in growing up. Your favorite hangout spots, the grocery store you always went to, where your parents worked, where your first job was. Any of these are just a great thing to kind of look back on, and you get a sense for each other's hometown more and where and how they grew up. Along the lines of video games, one of my favorite ways to just kind of spend some time with your partner, have a little fun competition is DWI Kart. That's Mario Kart. It's like Mario Kart, but more boozy, and I'll get into that in the final segment of the show. If you do want to spruce up some of the things you have around the house, another great thing to do is get really creative, break out the old paint set, and take old wine glasses that you have that you're not like super fond of. If you're fond of them, please don't do this. But if you are not super fond of, or you just feel like they're old and can be replaced easily, break out the paint. Even sponge brushes are great for this, and go wild. Make a matching pattern that you and your partner can paint on your separate wine glasses, and you make them unique to you, or you make one for each other. It's just a fun way to kind of get messy and get artsy and crafty and create something new for the space you live in. If you are looking into moving somewhere else, or especially if you've not found your forever home, go online, do some window shopping for your dream home. You can, especially now is a great time because so many people are using virtual tours as a way of touring houses for sale, and you can, experience places all over the world, all over the U.S., wherever you want, and you can go online and just kind of check out houses. And obviously, this isn't something that you have to buy in the future. It can just be your dream home and something that you guys can be like, hey, this would be amazing if we lived here someday. And if you do have this space in your home, you can try learning a new dance together. You can try swing dancing together. You can learn a synchronized dance. You can come up with a dance for one another, or you could even try a new workout together. Getting fit is something a lot of people are using this time at home to do. Or even try the clothes swap challenge, where you and your partner change the clothes that you wear on a day-to-day basis, and you do a cute little video, you add some music to it, and you post it online just for the humor of and entertainment for your friends. So hopefully you can implement these into your stay home experience so that it can ease a little bit of the stress and make just for a more happy and fun atmosphere at home for you and your partner. So coming up next, we're going to talk about quarantining without bae. We're going to go on the other side of the spectrum. So please stay tuned, and I will see you in a little bit.
You really can't underestimate the importance of having the right creative work for your brand or your product. Whether it's a logo, a website, a book cover, or an ad campaign, you really need a quality design to make that big difference pop and deliver your overall engagement and success in a competitive market. That's where Design Crowd comes in. Design Crowd has over 750,000 designers from Sydney to San Francisco ready to help you with awesome creative ideas. They make crowdsourcing work for you. So if you need a logo or you're working on your creative branding, you can go to designcrowd.com and post a brief describing the design you need. And then within about 2 to 7 days, you'll receive up to over 100 different designs from designers around the world. Then you pick the best design and approve payment to the designer. So you're only paying for the design that you want. It takes a lot of the guesswork out of freelancing and out of crowdsourcing. And you don't have to be a huge company like Harvard Business School to use Design Crowd, although they have used it as well. You can start a project on Design Crowd for as little as $99. And if you go right now to designcrowd.com/health and wellness or enter the promo code health and wellness on their website, then our health and wellness listeners will receive up to $150 off of your design project. That's designcrowd.com/health and wellness or entering that promo code health and wellness.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
Welcome back to Relationships with Jessica Co. We have been discussing how to deal with being at home with your person all day long and ways to keep out of the monotony or worse, feeling like you're trapped inside with them during this COVID-19 lovely stay-home quarantine order. And although it is necessary for our own safety and for everyone else's safety around us, it is so easy to gripe and be upset about the stay-at-home order, especially when you feel like you're being taken away from your loved ones because you don't live together. And I gave you guys some really refreshing activities to change up how you interact with your partner at home. But don't worry, I have not forgotten about you all on the other side of the spectrum. So what if you and your partner don't have the opportunity to live together and you are separated by the quarantine policy? We find our time a lot more empty, especially if you live alone, where you used to spend date nights together and make pancakes in each other's kitchens the morning after, or just lay in bed for hours together while watching YouTube videos. This time has been replaced with scrolling through Instagram alone in the quiet and shady darkness of your own room. And it's a very unsettling feeling. It's kind of lonely, especially if you live by yourself at home. You just feel so much more empty. And if we let it get to us, this kind of quiet might become very consuming. So how can we overcome this? We have to take steps not to succumb to the staycation mentality. For those of us who stay home and have either lost our jobs or work remote as a result of COVID-19, it becomes increasingly easy day by day to start skipping daily tasks that we used to do, such as makeup, taking showers and staying clean, like clipping our nails even, just waking up on time and going to bed at a decent time as well. We forget to do simple things like watering our own plants, cleaning the house, shaving, brushing your teeth, eating well, exercising. It just starts to go out the door because you start to get into this groove of this constant at-home order. And one thing we can do to fill the hours of time spent alone is to start recreating a routine for yourself, or if you never had one in the first one, take this time to create one and find responsibility for yourself, because that will start to fill up all of those hours that you used to spend with your loved one, or hours that you just find yourself really missing them. It'll give you something to busy your mind with. So you could start with something simple. For example, set a timer as to how long you're going to spend on your phone after waking up in the morning. Start to wake up at a decent time, a time that you would usually have gotten up for school or for work before. And if you did get up like extremely early, find a time that works for you, but don't keep waking up at 1 p.m. every day if you have a job that's a day job. If you worked at night, that totally makes sense, but don't wake up at hours that just don't make sense. And along with that, don't start staying up into really late hours of the night just because you don't have to go to school in the morning. You don't have to be on a bus at 6 a.m. You don't have to be at the workplace, dressed up nicely and ready to go at 8 a.m. It's now a matter of your own mental health. So after you come to an agreement with yourself on how long you're going to spend on your phone in the morning or just kind of resting in bed, after that, take a few minutes to get up, cleanse your face, brush your teeth, or take a shower, whatever makes you feel refreshed in the morning and just clean and a little bit more comfortable with your own body. After this, you can even try doing a little bit of morning exercise, whether it's just a 5-minute yoga break or a quick jog around the park. As long as you're exercising to what's comfortable with you, and you don't have to exercise first thing in the morning. It's just a way to prepare yourself for the day, to build up something to do within those not so busy times that you find yourself missing your partner. You could even go straight into breakfast. Making sure that you're eating all the meals of the day is also very important to keeping up with the routine. And with that routine comes time that you can actually schedule to spend with your partner You can video chat them, especially during parts of the day that you would have otherwise spent together. Now, remember that a distance relationship isn't the same as a long distance relationship. You can still see each other, but with the concern of safe spacing in mind, and there's less risk for cheating or falling in love with someone else, but because both of you are restricted to your home and the essential areas you need to go to. It's known that the most critical thing that couples are missing out on is physical contact, and those whose love language is physical touch are going to be at a major disadvantage here. So if your partner has physical touch as their language, be mindful of this, especially if they seem more needy than they usually are. And video chat isn't the same as a hug or a kiss on the lips. So today I learned about telehaptics, a solution to this no-touch policy. And I'll actually get into that in the next part with some suggestions on what you can use as well. Don't try to rush into moving in together just to overcome these boundaries of living without each other. You face the risk of signing a lease together when you might not be ready for those next steps in your relationship. And couples who have been doing well together for years already are finding stressors in the confined living spaces because the grass is always greener on the other side. So if you do feel like you're ready for this change and you do choose to move in together, remember that it is advised both you and all the other members of the house self-isolate for a minimum of 14 days to prevent any possible spreading of the virus. Read into how long distance relationships or LDRs handle the distance. There's been reports of time apart actually benefiting the couple because the time spent together becomes more cherished and more meaningful. While the time spent apart, you tend to think fondly of them. This is increasing your sense of commitment to them. You'll grow more independent you'll grow more as an independent person, and when you are away from your partner, you're giving your time to figure out and sort your own responsibilities while still enjoying and maintaining a relationship with someone, even if you don't see them every single day. You have to find yourself before your relationship advances. So again, I stress that if you do see that the only way to meet your physical, your needs to touch and sense your partner physically, make sure that you are responsibly ready to move in and you are financially ready as well, because especially now, a lot of people are losing their jobs. A lot of people are unemployed. So make sure that you're staying on top of things and not just rushing into this decision of moving in together just to avoid a short-term quarantine. And remember that this is short-term because this has really become difficult for so many people because there is no set limit to when this quarantine will end. When things will become safe again and for us to enjoy our loved ones in the flesh is completely unknown to all of us. And even though we're getting these constant promises of, we're reopening the states, it's still unknown as to when there's going to be a vaccine and when all of the distancing is going to be over. So try not to let your relationship be totally driven by this unknown uncertainty of a pandemic and when it's going to end, because the pandemic is already stressful enough for everyone. And going against each other as opposed to being side by side and getting through this together is not going to help your relationship at all. And just remember that even though you're apart, there are still people struggling who are together. So as far as just trying to make it work while you're apart, find this time as an opportunity as opposed to wishing it were some other way. Because a lot of the time there is no option for that other way. And when you start to wish that that you could be together when you can't be, you're just going to put stress on each other and try to force this relationship into something that it's not. And this kind of negativity that is going to be pushed in with that stress is definitely going to just cause a crumble of the relationship. And it's actually very interesting because studies and surveys have shown that couples spent apart are doing better than couples that are spending time together during quarantine who are in the same household. So just keep in mind that everyone's situation is different and just try to stick together through these tough times because you can do it and your relationship is worth so much more than trying to end everything over not being able to see each other. But stay positive and try to accept the way things are, because coming up in the next segment, I'll discuss a few ways that you can still spend some quality time with your partner even when you aren't together in person. So stay tuned and we'll see you after the break.
Are you tired of the same old news? Are you sick of the seemingly endless political spin and negativity? The GSMC America Still Beautiful podcast is a weekly news podcast covering all the top positive and uplifting news stories. We cover stories that will inspire, uplift, and remind you of the good in the world. Tune into the Golden State Media Concepts America Still Beautiful podcast to get all the great and positive news stories of today. Download the GSMC America Still Beautiful podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
So we are back after discussing the differences between some of the in-person relationships that are happening right now during quarantine, where partners are living together, and some ways to cope with that, and a few activities just to spice it up, as well as how couples are able to cope and, you know, some of the results that are going to happen when you aren't living together and you're separated for a little bit during the pandemic and during the stay-home orders. So now we are going to go through a couple of ways that you can really supplement your relationship while being apart. And this is taken both from ideas that were influenced by experts and some of the surveys that I've gone through. Just a lot of research went into finding these. And it's also a lot of what long distance relationships tend to do when faced with that major distance between them. So first of all, I have sending a letter. Write down some thoughts, meaningful, or whether it could just be rambling. It could just be, you know, a short little note. It could be a story. It could just tell them how your day was. It doesn't matter. Even if you text and call all day long, sending a letter is just going to be something physical that they can hold in their hands, especially for the physical touch deprived. This allows your partner to be able to hold a piece of you and a piece of your thoughts. So if you want to go extra, spray a little bit of perfume or cologne on the letter so that they can even take in the scent, because they're probably missing that too. It'll be just a nice way to remind your partner that you're thinking about them even when you aren't together with them. And assuming that you and your partner still live close by, a lot of people have gone home for breaks, or like if they are in college, they'll go back to their hometown. So this isn't applicable for everybody, but if you do live close enough to your partner, you can go out for a walk with just a little bit more space between you. Go and explore nature, get out of the house, but just stay safe and wear a mask and bring hand sanitizer and just explore the wilderness with your partner, all while being 6 feet apart. This is a great way for people who have quality time as their love language, because even though you're not able to touch each other necessarily, you're still able to be there in person and just interact with each other, find your way through the forest or what have you. As long as you're being safe, this is such a great way for you to just spend time with your partner and try to find some of the normal in all of this. Earlier in the session, I discussed briefly something called telehaptics, and telehaptics is the technological concept that brings people in distance relationships together in physical ways. You may have seen the wristbands long distance relationship couples wear to overcome some of the deprivation of physical touch. I've seen these on Instagram, especially being somebody who goes and visits other countries for extended periods of time. I've come across a lot of these things, and you these bands allow partners to interact no matter how far they are. When one partner taps their band, the other one, their band will light up and vibrate to show that the other is thinking of them, which is a really unique and cute way just to say, like, hi, and just to remind your partner that you're thinking of them right then. And I think that is just such a wonderful thing. There's so many brands out there that do this. A lot of them can come to very high prices, but there are some out there that are a little bit more inexpensive. So if you're really suffering from that physical touch deprivation, I highly recommend that you take, this is just a little step. I know it's not much, but it does help a little bit in the long run. And another project in the works is a pillow. And it has kind of the similar features, but rather than lighting up and vibrating, it warms to replicate like the warmth of sleeping next to your partner, which is also just such a fantastic way to like really get out of that sadness of missing your partner so much, especially for those physical touch people. It's a really hard time for you guys, and I'm so sorry for what you're going through. Find an MMORPG you can play together. There's so many that you can do. If you don't know what an MMORPG is, it's a massively multiplayer online role-playing game. And I know it's a lot of words, but this is a very popular way for people to play video games online. You're in a world with a whole bunch of other people. A lot of the time they're fantasy games, and you can create a character, and you and your partner can start this together and go on a totally new adventure. You're going to go on battles with each other. You're going to learn new skills. You're going to craft things. You might even end up defending each other, and hopefully in the end you'll really get a good experience out of it, and it'll be great just to spend some time, even if it's online in a virtual reality, with your partner, because you're facing challenges together and you're overcoming them. So again, MMORPGs, you can look them up online. There's so many free ones that you can get into. Try it out with your partner. Maybe it's not for you if gaming's not your thing. Maybe you'll actually find you like it. It's worth a shot, and it just takes, not too long. So definitely try that out if you want to spend some more quality time with your partner. Have a Netflix party. Really FaceTime your bae and enjoy a synchronized Netflix stream through Netflix Party. They've even provided a chat room for you and whoever else is in your party. You could even have a romantic video chat dinner. This one I thought of all by myself. You set the table, light a candle, put on something nice, and, do your makeup, do your hair, whatever you would usually do if you were going out for date night. And try to make the same thing, like cook the same thing together. You guys can even video chat while you cook. Or you could order out. If you're not much of a chef, or your partner isn't much of a chef, then just order out and place your phone or tablet or laptop at their side of the table and enjoy a nice dinner in the virtual company of each other. Try some new foods and rate them to each other over call. It could be something you wouldn't usually eat. It could be something that one of you remembers from being a child. Maybe you guys are from different cultural backgrounds. It could really be anything. Just try something new together and kind of watch each other's reactions over a video chat. And if you're the fit type, try to challenge each other to maybe who can do the most push-ups by the end of quarantine, or who's jogged the longest. Try out Scriblio. Scriblio. I played it before. It's really fun. It's a drawing and guessing game. One partner draws the picture and the other has to guess what the drawing is. And whoever has the most points wins. Very simple, lots of fun. Also, if you're artsy, take part in a month-long drawing challenge. You can find these mostly on Instagram, but it'll give you a theme or concept for each day of the month, and you can share these with each other or show your friends and family online. And distance couples can also try a two-person book club, like I mentioned, for couples that are together in quarantine. But instead, you read it and discuss it every week or so, and this can really help both of you learn and experience things even when you aren't in the same physical world. So instead, you can come together in an imaginated world. If you're musical, you could write a song together. This one is especially great for those who actually have instruments at home. And it's not something, you shouldn't feel pressured to make it Carnegie Hall worthy. just as long as you have fun together doing it. It doesn't have to be meaningful. It could just be a silly song. And both of you will just have a blast out of making something together and having that memory and experience to share together. For those of you that love to cook or love to bake, I highly recommend that you cook something or bake something new. And if you're proud of it, wrap it up and take a little drive, go for a drive over to your partner's house and leave it outside their doorstep with a little note. Try to make sure that it's, quarantine friendly. Your partner can always wipe it down with like a Clorox wipe or something. And it'll just be such a nice gift to give to your partner, especially if you usually cook for them and they love your cooking. They're going to miss it so much. So this will be such a great way just to share what you've done and something you've made with them. Another idea as far as, sharing gifts over quarantine time, you can also create a care package. So all of the things, like something that'll remind them of you. You can give them a sweatshirt of yours, spray some perfume, some cologne on it, give them some of their favorite snacks and, maybe a DVD or CD, something just to make them smile and send them a package. Again, you can either send it by mail or just leave it outside of their house in a safe spot where hopefully nobody will steal it. So those are just a few ideas for what you can do with your partner when separated by pandemic or whatever else you're separated by. Many of these are actually applicable to long-distance relationships as well. So I'll be posting some more ideas on our Instagram regularly, so you can check us out there at GSMC Relationship. That's GSMC_relationship. Coming up next, we are going to talk about the ways video games can affect your relationship. See you shortly.
Are you looking to learn more about the latest trends from the fitness world? Are you confused by all of the different trends that are out there? The GSMC Fitness Podcast is the place for you. The GSMC Fitness Podcast is the place to come for people of all skill and interest levels. Join us as we explore the latest trends in the fitness world. Does that new exercise really work? Should I try yoga? Whatever your question, chances are good you'll find an answer on the GSMC Fitness Podcast.
Welcome back to the Relationship Podcast. We've discussed so much today, things like how to quarantine with your partner at home and how to manage your relationship when you're living apart. So with all of those topics, we're going to look into an increasingly popular way to supplement your relationship. And this is one I mentioned both with relationships that are stuck together in quarantine, not stuck, you are together in quarantine, and relationships, couples that are distanced during quarantine. This topic is video games. We have all heard the gripe and complaints about how video gaming can negatively affect relationships. It's time consuming, it's distracting, especially from chores, and people love to point fingers at violent games when it comes to violence in others, which is a topic often negatively skewed by the media. And there's no doubt when not being responsible and when not being, without moderating the time that's actually spent while playing video games, this can be harmful to a relationship because especially if one of the partners doesn't quite understand or they don't regularly play video games or they have other interests that they want to enjoy with their partner, but their partner is too busy taking time to play video games, this can become an issue. And when that kind of thing happens, that's really something that you shouldn't shy away from discussing with your partner. And if you are a regular video gamer yourself, if your partner does come to you, just keep an open mind and they're not trying to hurt you. They're not trying to insult you or criticize you on how much you play video games. They're simply worried about the health of you and your relationship with them. They want to be able to spend that time with you, and the best way to make sure that you have a balanced relationship while being able to keep some of those gaming opportunities is just by spending time doing both and, being reasonable about how much time you're spending at the computer or on the controller. But can video games actually have a positive impact on your relationship? The answer is yes. Video games create a variety of date night opportunities. It creates non-serious competition. Once you find something that both of you are interested in, both of you are capable of actually doing, because skills do range from player to player, and you just find something that you can do together. It's just like a hobby. It's so convenient too because it's at home. You can just do it at your computer, or you can find, you can invest into a gaming platform or gaming system if you don't already have one, or just an extra controller for your partner to be a part of your gaming experience if they aren't already. But when you play video games to do that together, you are accepting a challenge and you are taking on a role, whether it's a character you create or a character that's already created, and that character has a purpose, and this is a short-term purpose because the game has to end eventually. So you and your partner will take on this challenge, and you have to complete this purpose. And once you complete the purpose, it's very fulfilling, and both of you are just going to feel so great about it. Whether it's against each other or, with each other, you're working to complete an end goal that is mutual between the two of you. That's one of the best ways to be side by side, enjoy an adventure, enjoy an experience, and be immersed, especially in these times where we're really stuck inside, whether we're with or without each other. We're seeing the same thing over and over again. So this way you can experience a new world, and you start out fresh, especially if both of you are trying the game for the first time. You start out fresh in this new world. You don't know what you're doing. You have to equip yourself with whatever the game gives you, and together you work out how the world works. It's a world completely different from your own. Or you find a game where you're going against each other. Great games like Mario Kart, Super Smash Bros. You have to fight against each other, and it creates the desire to want to keep playing and to want to beat the other, but it should never actually harvest real fights. If it does harvest real fights, which there has been cases of that, there's probably some underlying relationship issues there. But if you're able to play the game and complete the game, and you're challenging each other, you're going against each other, the champion, whoever loses is you're gonna feel a little butthurt, but you'll also feel happy for your partner that they were able to experience that feeling of winning and success. And also, by taking on these video games as a part of your relationship, as a way to supplement your relationship, you can actually build a routine out of them. You can find times of day that works best for both of you, or maybe a day of the week where you sit down and you play a particular game together. And it just kind of forms a bond that you keep coming back for more. You build this activity that you keep wanting to do together, and you have a challenge, you have something you want to complete together. And there's really no out-of-game time restraint for you to actually complete these challenges, so it makes it much easier for you to take breaks from it, enjoy your usual daily life, and enjoy reality, and then come back to it when you're ready. And by doing this, it's so easy just to create a schedule. So like, for example, Friday nights, you're going to play RuneScape for like an hour together, or 2 hours after dinner, or maybe just until you fall asleep. But it just creates such a fun routine and something to look forward to. And especially online, video games are such a social experience. You can make new friends online, then you never have to actually meet them. You can you can rekindle friendships. You can actually better connect to your partner's friends through these games, because it builds those teamwork strategies. So you get to know your partner's friends and family a little bit better if they're taking part in playing those games and interacting with you while you play. And what's awesome is there's so many genres for games that you can experience with your partner, and you can find something that really works for you. Now, not all the time, you don't always have to play together. I've seen cases where one partner plays and the other one watches and just experiences it with them and views it like almost like a movie, like an interactive movie. And they'll still have a say, they'll still be able to suggest things to you, or the partner that's playing the game, but it's also a way for people that aren't as invested in video games, who aren't as interested in actually playing the game. It gives them a way to experience something with their partner that it's not a movie, and you still get to see how the developments work and how everything is done and choices made. And another great way is to actually go back and forth between playing. If you don't both if you don't both want to play at the same time, you can find a one-person game where one person plays, and then after a little bit the other person plays, and you go back and forth, and you use each other's skills for certain parts of the game that works best for you, and you get to bounce off of each other and your attributes and what you're strongest with. And this really works out well for a couple who is trying to build like that teamwork skill and ways that they can live together best, because you're actually inhabiting one character for the most part within a single game and trying to complete the same task. And of course, there's always those two-player games where you can either go against each other head-on in a competition or a battle, or you can even find, like I said earlier, MMORPGs are such a fantastic way for you to roam a new world and experience it with your partner. Or you can find another two-player game that really, those are just like teamwork strategy based, and they can really help you just build a bond with your partner, and in such a fun way too. You'll have lots of time to laugh and just enjoy each other. There's so many different types of stories you can find. You can find horror stories. If you love to watch horror movies, I highly recommend, because it's a whole new experience. If you've never tried a horror game, it is so much different than a horror movie, because you are actually making the decisions. You have to react. You're not just watching it on a screen anymore. Now it is a part of you that is experiencing the terrifying situation at hand. Other genres there can be very dramatic ones. You might find yourself actually tearing up at the end of a game. You can find visually pleasing ones. You can find fantasy-based ones. People who love Dungeons and Dragons, you are going to love a lot of MMORPGs. If you played that when you were in high school, or if you still play it today, you will just love what you are able to find in the world of all of those fantasy-driven games. And for those of you who are movie lovers, you will actually be able to find so many of your favorite movies in the form of a video game, and you will be able to play in that universe that you are so enthralled in, whether it's Star Wars, Lord of the Rings, there's so many, and you can really just enjoy a world that's so different from your own. So coming up next, I'd actually like to go through my favorite games for couples and how, who they're kind of meant for, what kind of couple will like them, and just kind of a little bit about them. So that'll be our final segment in the show. So be sure to stay with us, because you are going to love all the information I give you on these video games and all the suggestions and how it's going to be helpful for your own relationship. So stay tuned, and we'll see you soon.
The GSMC Life and Happiness podcast takes you on a journey of exploration. We'll discuss tried and true methods alongside the latest trends of how to best live your life to its fullest and happiest. From psychology to meditation, science to self-help books, the GSMC Life and Happiness podcast will help you to discover what makes you happy and how you can live life being the best you possible. Download the GSMC Life and Happiness podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
Thank you for staying tuned for the final section of our relationship podcast today. My name is Jessica Coe, and happy Memorial Day once again if you just started to tune in. We are going to be we just finished going over what part video games can play in a relationship, whether it's good or bad. There are both sides of the story, and I suggested some ways that it can actually work out for you. So in this final segment, I would love to go over just a few recommendations of my favorite games for couples. These are games, and I picked out many different genres for, different types of couples, but these are going to be games that you will be able to spend time together playing, either working together or just enjoying friendly competition. So the first one that I would like to share on my list is Unravel 2, and specifically the second one because the first one is single player only, and as much as it is a fun and beautiful and just adorable little game with a wonderful background story, Unravel 2 is going to be much more fun for you and your partner because you'll both be able to work together to play. And this is a puzzle game that you can either work alone or together to complete. And you are in this world as these tiny little knitted yarn dolls, and together you have to work together to use your strings, your stray strings, to get through a natural world, and it's just so beautiful. It is so amazingly illustrated. You will absolutely love this. It's very calming and peaceful, and it's just really fun to play and build that teamwork with your partner. A lot of it is being able to trust each other and work together, so it does require both you and your partner to be able to work together, and it can actually just build a really great bond between the two of you. And as a puzzle game, it doesn't require a lot of maintenance. You don't have to keep coming back every so often to keep things up. All you have to do is play whenever you're interested, whenever you and your partner would like to take some time, and it's just so calming and relaxing. So especially after a stressful day, you're going to find yourself so soothed by this beautiful visual experience. And I've also mentioned multiple times in this podcast the many wonders of Mario Kart, and surely by now you have heard about Mario Kart, whether you own it yourself, you are the master of it, or you just know somebody who plays it. It has been around for so long, and all of the editions ranging back all the way to 1992 with the SNES, and there's been a Mario Kart for each platform Nintendo has released up until today with the Mario Kart for the Switch. If you are looking for just a little bit of friendly competition with your partner, I highly recommend this game because you and your partner are going to have such a blast racing against each other, trying to beat all the other characters in the game, and you will just enjoy being able to play as your own favorite Nintendo character. They have such a wide variety of characters. You can build up your own kart given the pieces that they supply you with, and you can just race to the finish line on dozens of different tracks, and you will just be raging at each other in the most adorable way over Rainbow Road. So please give it a shot. If you have the ability to, you'll absolutely love it, and you and your partner will just find each other getting to have that wonderful experience of friendly and loving competition between each other. It's a great way to relieve some stress or just decide on an argument. Like, if you can't both come to an agreement, you just play some Mario Kart. Whoever wins, they win the argument. Simple, easy, doesn't require a lot of brain power. Try it out. You will just have so much fun. And following in suit with Mario Kart, you more than likely have heard of Super Smash Bros. By Nintendo, and this one dates all the way back to the N64, the Nintendo 64, and they have it all the way, they have released it for every home console, and they have it up until today with the Nintendo Switch as the most recent release. And this is a game where you're put into a stadium with either a bunch of computers or whoever else you are playing with within your room. You can just play with 2 people. You can play with up to 8 people, I believe. And you choose one of the Nintendo characters that they supply you with. You play as them, and you get to battle in one of many arenas that they have as options for you. And you and your partner can battle against each other to the death and see who is the strongest Nintendo player. So this is another great one for that friendly competition if you just want to duke it out and have a good time together, have lots of laughs. or even you can team up with each other and go against the computer. It's a lovely way just to spend your time, and especially once quarantine is over, or you can do online games with your friends. It's a good thing to do when you have guests over. It's great for house parties, and it's just so fun to be able to play in an arena that's so lighthearted and full of fun and creative weapons and fighting strategies. Next, I have League of Legends. You may have heard of this one. It's also called LOL for short. And this is an online game where it's another stadium-based game where you're placed into a stadium with 4 other players, and you can choose to be in a party with just one other person and go against bots. You can also choose to play with random people online or a group of friends online, but you and your partner, so long as each of you have a computer, it doesn't have to be a desktop, it could be a laptop. You and your partner can try this, and you pick from a champion, and you pick out a champion based on their skill set, and you'll pick one of 3 lanes to fight for and defend, and you try to take over the other team's territory. And this is a great way to fight alongside each other and to really feel accomplishment just from taking over something. The game has so many characters you can choose from, and it's actually really interesting, the different creative aspects to it. It's very simple to understand, but it takes a lot of skill to be good at. So if you're looking for something that you can get into easily, but you have a lot of room to improve, this is a great way to spend time with your loved one and fight alongside each other to defend one territory. Matches generally last about half an hour, so it is a little bit time consuming, and you do have to stay in the game for the most part for that 30 minutes. You can be docked points if you leave, so just keep in mind if you're looking for something that's not super time consuming, maybe this isn't the game for you and yours, but if you are open to that time restraint, then this is definitely something that you should look into if you want to start teaming up together online in-game. Next on my list, we have a new release from Nintendo that came out in March, and it has been taking the world by storm. It is called Animal Crossing New Horizons, and this is exclusively for the Switch. It's had previous installments in other consoles, but this is such a great game for couples who can't be together during quarantine, because although there's not many activities that you can do, there's no competition, you can enjoy each other and spend time with each other in this island that either you or your partner has created. You have a small villager that you create. You can make it look like you can make it look however you want. You have up to 10 villagers around the island that you live on, and you can visit different places like the museum. It's such a great place to hang out with your partner and go on a virtual date. It's so cute. It makes you feel good, and it's a nice way to substitute in-person dating for the time being. This is also a wonderful way for people in LDRs, long-distance relationships, to spend time with each other even when they aren't in the same place. And this game also has the ability to send each other messages, you can send each other gifts, and you create a lot of things, so it's really fun just to receive something that your partner created in the game that you might not necessarily be able to create yourself, or you don't have yourself, and they send it to you, and they give you something in a virtual space, in a virtual world where really anything is possible. So this is possibly on my top of top list for games, especially if you want to play with your partner, because you can experience just a day-to-day, slow-going, easy, relaxing experience with each other. And even if you can't go on a date together, you can in the world of Animal Crossing. So definitely check that one out if you have the ability to. And finally on my list of games that I have picked out for you is Nier Automata. And this is a game that comes from Japan. It is for the PC, and it's a one-person game. So this is going to be one that you're going to have to either have one partner play the whole thing and the other one watch, or you guys just switch on and off. But it is in the world of AIs, and they're protecting the Earth and trying to take the Earth back from robots that have consumed it, and they're trying to make everything safe for humans again. But it starts to question and develop a mind process of who is the evil one here and who is doing wrong in this world. So this is a great one if you're looking for something story-based, or one of you doesn't really feel like playing the game themselves. It's visually pleasing. The story is so deep, and there's so much to think about. It's very thought-provoking. and you and your partner will just find yourself going back and forth with theories on what's going on in this world. And it also has a capability where your choices affect the ending. So there's multiple endings. So it's very interactive. It's almost like an interactive movie. And you two will just enjoy this no matter how you play it. You and your partner will totally be able to enjoy this experience. And all you need is a computer for this one. So those are my games, and I just wanted to let you know whatever way you are spending your quarantine, with or without Bae, and whether you're playing video games or not, whatever you are doing, I hope that you are staying safe out there, that you're staying healthy, getting enough food. Just remember that it's all going to pass over and that bad times are just times that are bad. So thank you so much for listening to the GSMC Relationship Podcast. This was brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network, and I would be so grateful if you could subscribe to the show and write us a review. That is so helpful for us. If you could also please follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, you'll get to see so much awesome content on relationships. It's really nice to look at in between shows. So, thank you again. Stay home, stay safe out there, and remember to have a fabulous day.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Relationship Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.